pulls you in and doesn't let go.
Okay, hello. Welcome to your Sunday Panikin cast with two panikins. We're just a bunch of panikins over here asking why nothing is happening. Welcome to the show, a Templar whose name absolutely nobody can say, but one of my favorite people around. Although you are such a panikin, you're such a panikin,
Yes.
man.
Yeah.
But still, I don't. Yeah. Go ahead.
No, I mean, I'm a natural cynic when it comes to American politics. So
Yeah.
I feel like the position should be to always be complaining and only be
Yes.
thankful when it's over.
Right. Well, they say always chimp and then also always trust the plan at the same time. But yeah, you know what I call people who call me a panikin? I call them, I have my own nickname for them. I call them suck my dickikins. So all you people out there, stop being suck my dickikins when I'm complaining about things not happening. No, look, I trust the plan. I still like Trump. I'm still Team Trump. I'm not. I have not defected from Team Trump. I'm still on board. I still, believe the admin can do things. I think they're doing some good things, but yeah, man, like. I don't know. I think we definitely can ask the question, what's the deal? Where's the mass arrests? Where's the crackdown on these networks that are literally killing people seemingly without impunity whatsoever? So I'd love to get your take first and foremost as somebody who is a cynic in this arena. And what do you think is actually going on here?
I do think it's a bit of misappropriated priorities. Once again, my background is just a kind of like a New York Democrat who just wants to see people employed. So my issue is always going to be what's maximizing labor for common people and housing. That's just my libtarded brain. When Trump kind of came, I didn't Trump. I voted for Hillary in 2016, so I've always been a little bit on the opposition. And that's all. That's purely from like, well, I know this person. They're both from New York, obviously, but Hillary was my governor, and in my opinion, I was like, if I can ignore the blatant war crimes, maybe we'll get something on the domestic front. But I realized by 2020 that was a fiction. Of course, the first Trump administration was very distracted, very constantly infighting, very ineffective, and ultimately just became a slop factory for 4 years that went nowhere. Some minor interesting things happened with like an attempt at peace with the Abraham Accords, an attempt at other international issues, but the domestic front really was lackluster. I tend to view any given politician from just like an apolitical, how are you improving the country perspective. So I usually just look past the culture war slop, look past all the noise, like what's the signal being put out. And Trump too put out a lot of good signals that he might be reaching into areas that were being ignored by the Democrat Party because they too were getting sucked into culture war slop. The Democrats stopped caring about labor, stopped caring about jobs, stopped caring about housing, and started caring about crazy rights for 1% like population groups in the country that really had nothing to do with improving the country overall. And it seemed that during the various rallies and meetings, Trump was reaching out to union bosses and different groups of people that were interested in this issue. And then when he got in, it kind of got sucked into culture war slop with how can we look tough and all the mean things to say, and it looks good on paper, but it never really manifests as actual policy or improvement. One of the things I've been watching, for example, has been the deportation rate of illegals, and while I haven't been able to fully confirm it, I'm not entirely convinced the majority of the deportations have been entirely of Trump's doing. Some of the, like, one example, he created something called the ERS program. It was like emergency rent control, which had a side effect of you could bring people. He brought over like something like 10 million refugees, put them into housing in the cities, and controlled their rent, like froze their rent low, and gave them federal handouts to keep the rent coming in. And what this really was about was stabilizing the COVID economy. He had the idea, oh, we'll create like a charter that like works for like 5 to 6 years or so, and the refugees will sit in the cities and hold the housing prices while the COVID economy goes through. And then when COVID's over, we send them back, and we've successfully prevented a housing crisis in the cities. That was the real reason. Yeah, it was basically, I think, Nima Parvini called it I forget what he called it. He called it something along the lines of like economic control through refugee settlements, and it was like, it's obviously horrible to do this, but it's also a clever tactical perspective to do this, to control pricing. And as those charters have expired, they were set to expire in 2025. That means you're like every 6 months, you're basically automatic deportations for about like 2 million people every 6 months. And the deportation rate of Trump is about 4.5 million. So if you do the math, it sounds like he's not actually doing a lot of deportations. It's just the automatic expiration of Biden's scheme to prevent a housing crisis. And if you think about it, like for example, at this time, the office vacancy rate of the United States is about 30%. So like 30% of offices are vacant. And they didn't want, like, the whole reason for the scheme is they didn't want, obviously, 30% of houses being vacant, causing a housing crisis. So you get disparities like that, where you'll have like 30% of offices are vacant, but the apartments are full of refugees. Like, what are they doing? Where are they working? They're kind of just taking money from the federal government and paying rent as a secret, like as a kind of secret way to keep rent from crashing. Keep their. It's a way to keep income coming into real estate people. Real estate people keep donating to the Democrat Party. It's like a financial scheme. So
yes, of course, as many things are.
Yeah. Even on the main policy why Trump was brought in, it seems like it's almost automated. It's just following Biden's expiration date for a lot of these charters. And so like if Trump hadn't gotten in, there would have been 4 million deportations by the end of 2025. And there are 4 million deportations at the end of 2025. So
I see your point. Yeah.
Yeah, that's one issue. But if you want to interested, I don't know if you want to reply to that.
Yeah. Well, look, I don't know anything about it. Some Clarence Thomas 777 is saying 4.5 million is a huge overestimation. As if any of us know any of these fucking things. Nobody fucking knows a goddamn thing. Nobody knows what the numbers actually are. Nobody has any fucking idea. Right, so we're all just saying things over and over. I mean, you're making at least an interesting argument that it's like, hey, here is what the number sort of should have been. Here's what we're being told, etc. But does anybody actually know what the number of deportations is at all? Like, no, right? Nobody actually knows that, do they?
I don't think they would know it, because if you're on a charter and you're like, let's say like 30% of these 10 million importees are just following the law. They see it as an opportunity to get free money, live in America for 3 years, and go home. Would they be counted as deportations? Now,
yes.
It's possible.
And they're also saying self-deportations counts as 70%. How do we know this? How is any of this verifiable? Is the 4 million including self-deportations? No, right? Or yes?
I think it is. I think it is. I think it is.
Yeah. So it's like, did the other ones count Did Biden count self-deportations? Because
no,
like 70% that they're claiming are self-deportations.
Yeah. I mean, look, and again, go.
Yeah. Sorry. No, go ahead. What were you gonna say? I didn't mean to interrupt.
Well, like you see these irregular, inconsistent numbers from different departments because obviously they're not talking to each other. So if one department is actively removing people, they're going to have one figure, and if another a department is just keeping the records of these housing of rent control housings charters, they're going to have a different figure. And so sometimes the administration merges them. Oh, we've deported 4 million people, but like sometimes it says, oh, it's only 2 million people we've actively deported, and it doesn't really line up. And of course, we don't actually know if these people just saying they self deported, but they're still here, because like you're just pressing a button on an app that says you left, but you don't actually know if that's true.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. It's like also yeah, how can you tell these things? I mean, I think the most promising stuff is the footage of people actually being deported, right? Like that seems to be like, well, at least we weren't seeing these before, But and it is hard to believe that the Biden administration was doing any ICE enforcement at all. I mean, were they actually sending people after places? So,
No,
but then
they weren't doing
again,
it.
but then again, Obama was keeping kids in cages, right? The cages that the kids were in were Obama cages. So that was just yet another horseshit thing from the left. Look, I can't tell. I have no idea. This is one of these things. It's like the Trump. We should just, at least what we do know is that this one thing is the most important issue with which to judge the Trump administration. So, Trump admin haters like Fuentes are out there being like, nobody's actually getting deported. People who are pro the administration are like, look at all these people getting deported. How does the normal everyday citizen tell what the truth is? I literally have no clue. I have no idea how somebody would even tell such a thing. Does anything seem different in Los Angeles? No, it doesn't seem like there's any real differences that I can necessarily see. I mean, maybe traffic may have improved a little bit. But you still got to wait 8 months to see a doctor, and everything seems to be basically the same. It doesn't like there's not like jobs for normal people. I mean, the whole thing is LA is being destroyed by, horrible policies that are making the entertainment industry leave. So that still seems to be happening. I went to a restaurant the other day, used to be a great brunch spot. And look, this is all I can do. All I can do is give anecdotal shit. It was a great lunch spot, and a brunch spot should have it's a diner. It should have a waitress. Her name should be like Pam. She should have been there for 30 years. She's aging. That's what a good diner is. Or even a fancy brunch space. Fine, have a fancy. This was like a legendary fancy brunch spot in LA. It had been totally gutted and turned into a counter with no customer service, and everyone in there is a Mexican that can't speak English. There is there's nothing left. There's no waitresses. It's literally a counter with shitty food, but it just is like the shell of this old famous, it's called Blue Jam, this brunch place that used to be popular. And it's just whatever fucking Armenian owned it, just like completely gutted it and filled it with legal immigrants. And that's who works there. They don't do anything. They don't do any customer service. They just give you your food, and it's terrible. And that's it. So I still don't see that not happening. I mean, but again, maybe these impacts take a really long time to be felt.
Maybe, but like you sometimes read about things in other countries, like Iran just deporting like 6 million Afghanistanis like in a month, and then they're able to like put their people to work. And there's like other countries can clearly do this in a matter of weeks to months, and we constantly have to just like say, well, later on. It's always later on. It's never just do the job that you were hired for. And that's one thing with the immigration stuff. And obviously Trump was supposed to put some serious investment into domestic labor, but instead he's like been taken advantage of with like visa programs to bring in foreign labor instead. Intel being like he basically bought a giant share of not a giant share, but a significant share of Intel to make it competitive with Taiwanese chip manufacturing. And the story of Intel is itself pretty fascinating because Intel was never a good chip maker. What happened is that Apple became kind of like their quality control department, and Apple would verify that the chips actually worked and then give a green for it and put it into their machines, and then the excess was sold to the consumer. When Apple decided, no, we're going to do our own chips, Intel's quality went down because Apple wasn't checking them anymore, and so these chips just became crap. And the American government was supposed to get involved with quality control, upgrade the manufacturing techniques that haven't been really updated since the 90s. And instead, now it's just like, oh, we're just going to bring over a bunch of foreign labor to make the chips somewhere else and bring them in and quality control them here. So it's not really domestic manufacturing. It's not really domestic job creation. It's just a way to sneak in chips from foreign countries and say, hey, we made it. Slap an Intel logo on it with some federal funds and be like, hey, it's provided to you, the consumer, at a discount price because the federal government's paying for us to import it from somewhere approved. It's not actually building a domestic.
Why did they do it that way? Why didn't they just hire Americans to do it?
Because Americans haven't been trained to do this stuff. The federal government has to create a training program, and most of the main ways of making and verifying chips, it's like they're documented on like research papers. You can just read it and train people here to do it the right way. But they have this like aversion to training Americans for some reason. I don't know why. They're just like, oh, that extra 10% of cost to actually get people up to snuff here, we can't do that. We'd rather just use slave labor. It's kind of like stupid.
Wow. So that was kind of another thing that didn't go quite correctly.
No, and now Intel is just like, their stock's not great, and everything's just kind of like it's kind of like they became a pig farm, a pay pig. They're just like, well, we're taking the federal funds and we're importing chips instead of making them, so we're fulfilling our quotas, but it's not really creating domestic industry. That's I have like a long tally of just things that Trump said he was going to do, and then like the actual reality is lackluster, and it's just not benefiting the country.
Yeah. So, and other people have been saying this. This is kind of the new counter narrative, which is that, Jared Kushner's out there, like, just completely using this to enrich him and his family for all of eternity. And that's like sort of what's actually going on. And we're just getting sort of like culture war issues waved in our face while that's happening. Right. But I don't know. That to me doesn't matter so much. I don't look, everybody does this. The Bidens, Burisma, they were clearly doing all kinds of all day corruption. That's just what these fucking people do, right?
Yeah.
At least, and I'm sure there's a reason they do it. I'm sure that when you get to these levels, you need a bunch of money. I really don't think it's just straight greed. Probably like the Pelosi's, right? They do all kinds of shit like this. Is that actually just greed? Or is it more like, probably for some of these people it is just greed, right? They're just completely like, look, life is about fucking people over, and I'm smarter than everybody, so I'm just going to do it. But probably most of them, they think, well, this money is going to go to my enemies if I don't get it. Right? It's like better fucking Jared Kushner has money than the fucking Bidens. Like Hunter's cool, but better them than the Ilhan Omar family. You know what I mean? I'd so much rather Trump have this money than them. Yeah, so it's like if this is just how the game is played, and it's a constant, you're constantly sucking money from everywhere to sort of like gird your family, right? Like if that's how the game is played, whatever. I don't fucking care. Just do it. At least it's our guys.
I to some degree, yeah, but on another level, you're kind of describing the looting mechanics that happen in like late Empire situations. It is fundamentally a form of looting the empire as it stumbles. The Chinese call this the Eunocracy period, where the imperial power starts. Yeah, it's a period where the imperial power starts stagnating and collapsing, and so the imperial eunuchs that are like the managers of that system, they start looting it. There's a famous quote from one of the dynasties as it crashed. The eunuchs found gold not in the mines but in the cities, and they mined them dry. And in many ways, like the families that you're describing, there are imperial eunuchs. They're these like self-interested, non-long-term thinking people. Dynasties tend to think generationally. Eunuchs can't breed, so they don't really think beyond their own lifespan.
So they're thinking now. Well, and that's so true, right? And that's so
Yeah.
true of the gay, the gay class that runs DC. They're like, well, I don't care about the future. I'm just gonna I'm gonna jizz as many times as I possibly can in dudes' asses in this lifetime because that's what I want to do. And so it's true. It's like there's not really like a forward-thinking thing, and it's hilarious that you're saying it's like the court eunuchs are taking it over. But I mean, come on, is Trump really? I don't buy it. I don't think Trump. Like, look, yeah, he's a fucking corrupt real estate guy. Everybody knows that, but he's kind of our corrupt real estate guy, right? I mean, isn't that who he's been from the beginning? He's always been going against the real corrupt system that knows how to bullshit and just hide, right? Like there's like the hidden real estate people. And Trump is like, yeah, he plays the game, but at least he's sort of our guy. At least he's like fighting for us.
Yeah. I mean, you can sometimes view it that way in terms of it's clear that Trump can be bullied into doing things. Like he can be pressured. If you chimp enough times, Trump starts worrying about his image above all else, and his personal legacy. He doesn't really care about anything else. So if you chimp enough and make it look like it's bad, he'll finally get off his ass and do something. But usually it'll be in like a kind of quick gesture, unplanned way that either gets stopped by a judge or crippled very quickly after from incompetence. This is a common feature of egotists in many ways. It's a common feature of people with big egos that where if they feel like their image is taking a beating, they'll do something really quick and unplanned. There's a famous case with like the January 6 people where he was going through them one by one in January, and then people were complaining about how it's so corrupt and everything, and so he got worried that he was going to look like he was backtracking on what he said. So he's quoted by some source saying is "fuck it, release them all." That's his quote, and he didn't even bother looking at the cases individually, and that caused like quite a bit of a messy release of some people who were generally insane. Like you got the guy in the Viking horns saying on Twitter now that he's the legitimate president and people should elect him because he's mentally unstable, whereas like the old grandma MAGAs got out as well, but he didn't quite take a case by case basis. So you've got a lot of mad people released along with the old boomer grandmas.
Yeah, well, I think you're right. So anyway, look, the point of all of this is not really about the point of this discussion, as far as I understand it, is not really about immigration. It's not really about do these other kind of side things of domestic labor. Even I mean, these are very important. Don't get me wrong. I'm right there with you. I think everything is labor. Basically, they're slaves. It's just slavery, right? We have modern day slavery. It's Mexicans. That's what we have. And so people want slaves, and therefore this is what happens. And like real slaves, somehow the middle class just gets skipped over for the slaves. If I could get slaves, if I could pay a fucking housekeeper $3 an hour, and I could have that, I would be so much more down for open borders than I am. But with the middle class, we don't get that shit. The kulaks don't get shit. We have to do everything ourselves. We have to pay for everybody else's shit. We have to pay for everyone's healthcare. The middle class has to pay for the healthcare of the slaves. The rich people don't fucking pay for it. We pay for it. And so, as an American kulak myself, we just get fucked. We never get the slave part. You can't do that. Paying a fucking housekeeper in LA, there should be a million zillion illegal housekeepers. Paying a housekeeper in LA is astronomically expensive. You're paying them like 50 grand a year. Like, what's the fucking point? There's no point in open borders for us. The people that open borders help are scaled businesses, right? It's like H-1Bs. The H-1Bs don't get paid that much less. They get paid 30% less than normal employers. It doesn't, if you hire two H-1Bs, it's not going to really help you that much. Who it helps is Tesla, who has 1,000 H-1Bs, because 1,000 times 30% of what their salary is $15 million a year. So they're like, well, yeah, I want to save $15 million a year, right? And the consultants, that's what they encourage them to do. So again, the normal everyday people don't get any benefits and only pain from open borders.
There's also an element with the H-1Bs where, like, you know, the employer literally is holding your life by the balls, because if you're fired, you're getting kicked out.
Right. Which is even more more slavishness. Well, exactly. So it's like, that's really what the entire fucking West has been destroyed by this. It's also destroyed by the was it Jacob? Is it not fucking Jacob? Who's the Technicolor Dreamcoat? Is that Jacob? Joseph. It's the Joseph problem. You know, Joseph kicked out all the fucking Egyptians because he wanted the Jews to have like it was like a moral thing. This is why the Jews were enslaved. According to the Hasidic reading, the reason the Jews were enslaved, and please, if I'm getting this wrong, some Hasidim correct me, but the reason the Jews were enslaved were because Joseph, who was the Pharaoh's number 2 guy, after the famine, he owned all the houses, and so in order to like make Jews and other foreigners feel more at home, he like made the Egyptians share their houses basically with the other people, right? For some sort of like weird moral reason, because he was an outsider. Right, so he like forced them to do that, and that's why eventually the Jews were enslaved. That's what that's at least the reading that I've heard.
Yeah, I've heard that. That's like outside the Bible. It's a bit more of a tradition amongst. I think it's in the Talmud. I don't know if it's in the Talmud, but like there's traditional readings
I don't know if that's
that from an archaeological perspective, they were it's considered maybe part of the Hyksos conquest, blah 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 history stuff, but. Yeah, I mean, Egypt is probably a good example of that, where a foreign entity came in, took over the institutions, and then brought in their general people, and then the people kind of leached off the Egyptian farmers, and then that caused a rebellion of the middle class that then enslaved the foreigners.
Exactly, and that's Mm-hmm. Sorry.
Well, that's also that's a bit of a risk that this country could end up one day if the middle class gets angry enough and. Oh, did I just lose my phone? Oh, sorry, my screen turned. A dictator or a dictator, even of a left or right variety, might just say, well, this is like informal slavery. Let's just formalize it as slavery. That can happen. That has happened in the past, and that's a scary future you don't want. One of the things I've been pointing out recently is
it would be called universal basic income, right? That's what they would call it. It would be called UBI. They'd be like, we're doing UBI for the immigrants. And it would just be like, by the way, they can't leave. They'd be like, they can't actually leave, but they get free stuff. If they sign here, and you get free stuff your whole life, but you can't actually leave. It's as if, eternally binding contract. That's how they do it. Anyway, sorry, keep going.
Yeah. No. What was I going to say? I've been pointing out occasionally that, if you look at in the 1860s, the demographics of the Union and the Confederacy, many people forget that the Confederacy was only like 51. Maybe maybe it was like 61% white people, basically. The rest was all slaves and Indians, and so it was actually not really not much of a majority white area, despite people saying it was this like racist ethnic state. It was kind of bordering on minority rule, and if you count only the white landowners, it was minority rule. They just had a significantly large yeoman farmer class that kind of was in the hinterlands. In any given city, it was minority white, the modern United States is more like the Confederacy than the Union in demographic terms, but also in political terms. Like we're not as centralized as the Union was in 1860. We're more decentralized like the Confederacy. We're more in debt like the Confederacy. We're more foreign dependent like the Confederacy. And what that means is that we are starting to suffer the same economic crises and demographic crises that the Confederacy had that led to its demise. And I mean, we could even go so far as to say in the centuries long time span, you might view Canada as more similar to the Union, but I don't think Canada's going to conquer us. But
Oh, and
there's
they're just
certain
as bad,
elements.
aren't they? Aren't they just as
Yeah,
bad?
they're
Like
getting
they're,
there.
yeah, yeah.
So because of this, the United States today is actually starting to experience the same domestic crises that the Confederacy was facing both during the Civil War and a little bit before it, before they formally split off. And that's something that the country isn't ready for because honestly the fix for it is a kind of reconstruction, but the United States does not have the political, demographic, or economic forces of the Union in the 1860s to do reconstruction. So it's inherently unstable. It's almost like a confederacy without a union to stabilize it or bring it back into the fold of normalcy.
Right.
So
Interesting.
you're kind of looking at something that's just naturally going to decline in virtue and stability until it starts again being looted, which it is currently being looted by its elite. But eventually, that looting operation runs out of things to loot, and that's when these families and lords start attacking each other for more
Mm.
cash because there's no longer like when the middle class is no longer there to loot. This also happened in the Confederacy, where once the yeomen's were kind of like outside the anything worth looting, and the slave families were solidified towards the last months of the Confederacy. They started like fighting with each other a little bit, not like open violence, but like who's the family that's going to get looted for the war effort now. This is like really late Empire stuff that is very unstable.
Wow, that's actually really fascinating. So, when you say that reconstruction would be the answer, what do you actually mean by that?
A very strong, centralized, undivided federal entity that doesn't really get involved with culture war slop on either the right or left, that just brutally brings into the fold these divergent families and elite. The same way that the Union, when they conquered the South, they brutally they the reconstruction that they were doing was tearing up the aristocratic and elite ownership of assets and bringing them under federal control. And then obviously gunning down the militias that formed to defend these southern aristocrats. The gunning down. You can compare the KKK was formed as a kind of like militia for aristocratic Southerners that wanted to protect their assets, and the federal troops came down and gunned them down. That's kind of what you have to do to a certain, not that violent, hopefully, but you have to actually bring them into the fold. These Bidens and Trumps and Obamas and Clintons, you have to tear up their assets and federalize them and bring them under federal control until there's basically no more culture war slop that these people used to protect themselves.
So that's what reconstruction was.
Yeah, it was just complete cultural ripping up of the aristocratic class.
Wow, of the
Every
South.
state had like every state had its like aristocratic families, landowners. They own the assets, and these were after the war. These were viewed as potential divergence points from the Union because like these were like wealthy people that could buy militias and push issues for their personal gain against the Union. Kind of like it's almost like after the Civil War, you had 30 years of many mini civil wars involved with individual families. And the Union's solution to that was basically to destroy them, to completely crush them and federalize all their assets. That kind of
Mm.
is like this has to be understood as somewhat obviously it's political, but in its own body, it's kind of neither right or left. It's like, do we have control? Do we have federal control over these assets and oversight? Is it going to fall in line in any issue? And that's basically what the Union Army did through the 1870s and 80s. They went into any potential divergent entity, ripped it up, federalized it, broke it, and then brought it underneath the idea of this is the Union. It's no longer Georgia. It's no longer Virginia or Georgia or Florida or Texas. Texas. Texas is pretty much one of the only places where it wasn't as effective. But like, you basically it's the brutality of breaking up these loose networks of aristocratic families. That's what a future federal government, if it wants to stop this crisis and actually refocus on the domestic front, Reconstruction 2.0 would be just ripping up these like elite billionaire divergences that don't fall in line with the federal direction. And again, this is outside, whether or not the federal government is right or left wing. It's the point is that it's not divergent from what the federal government wants to do. It's national. It's like it's become a reunified, reconstructed federal entity.
Wow. Dude, you're blowing my mind right now, actually, because you're right. It's like, and it was, weirdly, actually, where I was going to take this discussion is that it's the family foundations that are destroying the country. It's the
elite families, at least.
Foundation. It's the dregs of these families.
It's
the fucking wine ant. It's the childless wine ant who now runs the Rockefeller Foundation. That's who's fucking funding all of this far left communism. Right? I mean, at the end of the day, it all leads to there. And Soros, who, let's talk about a family that should be broken up. So, and you're right. It's like Reconstruction. If that's what Reconstruction really was like forcing these families that were involved in the slave trade and were just these kind of networks of families, right? If that's what their enemy was and they had to do that in order to establish the Union, we're in that now. We're there now. Yeah. The thing we need to do is break up these fucking foundations. I mean, they're not called families anymore. They're called foundations, and now they're run by women, and the women are communists for some reason. It's very strange. So it's not. I mean, it's not the same as. It's not exactly the same, right? It's a different kind of slaveholder. It's a different kind of totally different sort of slave owning. At least then. The slave owners were straightforward about, they were like, I'm a slave owner. This is my interest. I care about having slaves. Now, the slave owners don't realize that they're slave owners, which is so strange. It's so fucking weird. Like, why? And that's what makes all of this so hard to accomplish and so hard to understand, because the people running these companies or these NGOs, they think they care about labor, right? They at least say that, but they don't, right? I mean, don't they want, so it's so weird. How do you explain that? How do you explain like the mass cognitive dissonance?
Oh, well, I mean, I wouldn't say it's only women. I would say that there's a lot of, some of these families are matriarchs now, some of them are patriarchs, but they're still fundamentally self-interested rather than communally interested. They're self-interested in their foundation. Foundation probably is a better word than family, because at this point these families,
it's their foundation. Exactly.
Yeah, they've adopted a lot of stray cats, let's say, into their family. So it's not really like genetic, but there is a certain blood loyalty within these foundations to them and theirs.
I don't even know if there is. I don't know if there is any loyalty in these things. Is there? I mean, like, I don't know. I don't know what it's like on the left. I know what it's like on the right, but I don't know. Like, inside the Rockefeller Foundation, what's going on in there? Does anybody care? Does any, I don't know.
I met some of these people and they seem to be very.
Oh shit.
Did I fall out? My bad.
No, yeah. For 1 second, I pressed the wrong button. Keep going. Yeah, you said some of these people.
Well, like I've interacted with these various people, both in serving them for various jobs, and you know how New York is. You meet people in different places, and you get to know them. Maybe at the Met Gala or something like that, where you interface with these entities and you get a kind of gist of where their mind is. And some of them are just I would say a majority of them, they get their wealth from like various trust funds and stock income and real estate. So they kind of aren't aware of how much capital they have. They feel like they're. I would argue the way in which they act, I kind of get the sense they feel like they kind of know they're, the rich billionaire class that they always criticize. They are it, and they don't like that, but they can't like undo their status in life. So they kind of do these vicarious actions to make themselves feel virtuous. And where exactly they get the definition of virtue, I'm not exactly sure. Maybe I don't know. There's also like an element of a lot of these people are like addicted and stuff like that to various psychedelics and have warped visions of the world. But in my experience, that's surprisingly high. Like a lot of these people are like they've been in La La Land on psychedelics for so long. Their warped vision of the world is making them do things that they think are virtuous but are devastating to the country. They're very warped is the only word I can say. Like I think the guilt they feel for having all this wealth and power and not knowing how to use it to benefit people makes them overshoot virtue and end up being villains. I think that they don't really have a moral leash to make them understand how to benefit the country. So they just do these erratic, self-destructive things that they think are virtuous, but never really produce anything but ruin. Why they keep doing them, I don't know. It's like mental illness. Tolkien might call it the dragon disease. Like the too much wealth, you delude your vision, and you just start destroying things. But they still are like loose cannons, like unregulated forces of economic and political power, firing in directions that are rather haphazard and random, often self-conflicting, often destructive to those around them. And they just want to do something, so they just do something wildly and unpredictable and unplanned, and it almost always doesn't hit the mark. It just causes ruin. Like, I'm going to invest $1 billion into this obviously bullshit health company because I think it's going to benefit people. Oh, I just lost $1 billion, and now everybody that took this medicine has cancer because there's no work done on like what this medicine is it effective, like the forgetting of certain methods and technical procedures to verify things. It's like they just invest here to cure cancer. Oh, you just gave everyone cancer. Oops. I'm babbling a little bit because I'm at a loss for words for why they do it.
Well, we're getting, yeah, but that's what's so strange about it. It's strange, because it's so cognitively dissonant. Yeah, I guess it's just communism, right? It's like a form of communism, pretty much. It's like the same thing that creeps into a communist state, at least as long as it's not Chinese or East Asian. The same sort of thing is the reason why these foundations act the way they do, right? It's like it's the same kind of dinner party corruption, tokenization of minorities, just, yeah, kind of vast mediocrity, kind of, right? I mean, that's sort of what it is. It's just like, it's what it really is at the end of the day is mediocrity. And
Yeah,
I think things just got too good. Things got too good. That's pretty much what it is. Wheat made it so that nobody dies. And when wheat makes it so that nobody dies, there's just too many idiots. There's too many idiots around with too much money. And idiots do things for really dumb reasons. And for some reason, this class of idiots, which is these families, it's so true what you're saying about Reconstruction, has become engaged in the practice of funding violent global communism, and bio-communism at that, like biological communism, and that's pretty much what they spend all their money on, right? I mean, that's pretty much what they do. Yeah.
I would recommend the book The New Class by Milovin, who's like someone who went through this in the Soviet Union, and he kind of goes over how the communists tried to erase the old class distinctions but like in the pursuit of creating this classless society, they started viewing themselves as like the shepherds of the masses that have to
Exactly.
like
Yeah.
reform.
Right.
Yeah,
Yes.
and they
That's
just
how
end
they
up
think.
creating. Yeah, they just end up becoming a new class of elite that are a lot
Well, an
less
even worse
competent.
one. And
Yeah,
a
yeah.
far worse one, right? Because
It's a great
they
book.
think, yeah, and that's basically what these people are. They think everyone else needs to not fly on a corporate jet, but I no, see, I have to because I am changing the world. I'm a steward of the world, right? And so since I'm a steward of the world, I have to fly on my private jet for a 20-minute meeting with somebody because who knows? Maybe we're going to cure cancer. Maybe we're going to solve climate change in this meeting. So therefore, it's worth it. They're utilitarians. Um, and they're just idiots, right? They're idiots. Nothing they do is actually effective except for they just dump their family's money into violence, what ultimately leads to violence. And that's what this podcast show should be about, which is what we're actually asking here when the title is Why Is Nothing Happening? We're actually asking, since Charlie Kirk's death, at least in my opinion, and since the Zizians and Antifa beating people and all this shit, where's the fucking response? Where's the actual response? I mean, Trump today sent the National Guard to Portland because I think some judge said he couldn't send the Portland National Guard or the Oregon National Guard there. So that's great, right? That's something. That's like something happening. That's good. It's good, blah, blah, blah. But if it were me, and maybe it hopefully will be me one day, not that I actually want to do this. I don't want to do this job, but somebody has to do this job. There needs to be, like the left has, a room full of young people on Adderall spending 14 hours a day thinking up shit to respond to Charlie Kirk's murder. There needs to be a group of people in there thinking about symbolic actions, physical actions, new networks to build, new agencies to start, new, I don't know how the fuck legislation even works, but bills, administrative acts, declarations. The best we fucking got is Trump saying Antifa is a terrorist organization. That doesn't fucking mean anything. There is no domestic terror list. So is he saying that he's putting it on the FPO, which is the foreign FTO, which is the foreign terrorist list? Is that what he means? Because it didn't go on there. So what the fuck does that mean? Like okay, fine, do it, but we need shit. We need fucking wins. Even if he's out there, even if it is true, he's just looting everything. He doesn't give a fuck, which isn't true, of course. But even if that is true, you got to give people some red meat here. You got to give people some arrests. You got to give them some other shit. And the point of that is not to give people what they want for political reasons so you get elected again. The point is that if there's no fucking counterbalancing weight to a network of people that can just kill people in public on the left, your country's fucked. You can't have that. You can't have a system where one party goes to jail if they say the N-word one time, and then the other side shoots people in the face and brags about it, and then nothing happens. It's not.
Yeah, I mean,
it's not tenable. You can't have a society like that.
Yeah, again, it's another comparison to Reconstruction, where like the federal government knew you can't have the KKK just lynching people. That invalidates federal power. So right. You have to, but it's like they didn't really. The federal government cared a lot less about the KKK. The families funding it. They went after the families funding it, and that's why the KKK became a nothing by the 1920s, like right after the 1920s. I mean, it took a while. Like there were two phases of it. In the initial Reconstruction era, they brutally put down the aristocratic families funding it, so it went underground for like 30 years, and then it popped back up in the 1920s, and then it was crushed again. These things. The Antifa and all this stuff, they're really more symptoms of the looseness, like the lack of federal control.
Totally.
It like the KKK, it's a symptom of a lack of control over these families. And these symptoms would go away if the families were brought under the federal control.
Totally.
That's why I say like Reconstruction 2.0 is the only solution because it's what's needed to end the backing, the aristocratic
You're so
backing of these
fucking right,
forces.
man. This is so fucking correct. And it's like they gotta fucking do it. What are they doing? There's gotta be some charge you can bring
Yeah,
against someone. That's what I'm saying. There's gotta be a group of guys on Adderall in DC looking this shit up. You need 10 people in a room. You need 10, you need the fucking Manhattan Project the other way, and the goal is to find things to charge family foundations that are. Look, I don't want to go after people that are just having opinions. I don't believe in hate speech. Fuck that. I don't think it's like, oh, they're doing hate speech. No, I don't care. It's literally the violent part, just the violent part. Like
yeah,
the
yeah.
people that are actually supporting violence, like really, not just supporting left wing shit, like actually supporting violence. That exists, obviously. Look around. Charlie Kirk got fucking murdered by one of these people. It has to be there, man. There's gotta be at least enough for an arrest. For arresting one person that is funding this. It has to be there. I do not believe that they're that good, that there's not one tie to one of these people funding something violent. It can't be true. So where the fuck is that at?
In many ways, what you're describing is why I view Trump as utterly incompetent. Because if I was president, I would just find the friendliest federal judge I know and said like, I want to wiretap these families because I think they're funding violence. Give me a wiretap on them. Let me track their finances. Find the obvious fraud that's going on, and put the families under federal control.
Well, to be fair, for all we know, maybe that's happening, right? I mean, these
Hopefully.
things do take time. I don't want to say, maybe that is what's going on. Maybe they are doing that stuff. I don't know, but it would seem to me, man, you got to move quick, and it's maybe they just don't. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know why it's not happening. It's weird.
Yeah, yeah. I can probably draw a comparison here to I don't know how many times I've sourced this paper, but have you ever heard me rant about Charles Plummer III?
No, you were saying something about this. So what is this?
This is he's just some normal like historian guy who wrote a really interesting thesis in the 70s called Gallic Aristocracy in the Roman Imperial Court. And in many ways, this is a good example of what happens when you don't take over divergent families in territory. And in this particular example, I'm kind of glad they didn't, because I think the Gallic aristocrats are a lot better than the Roman ones. I think the Romans were incompetent at the end. But one of the things that people don't know is that when Julius Caesar conquered Gaul, he did something unique that didn't really happen in other territories. He kind of allowed a significant number of Gallic families to stay in power locally, to like own the landed assets, the vineyards, the mines. Like, okay, Gallic elite. There's a famous scene in a lot of stories about Caesar where he brings in the like 40 or something Gallic senators. Like he just takes these barbarians and makes them Roman senators overnight, so they'll vote in his policies. But what are the consequences of that? Is centuries later, when the Roman Empire is falling apart, the Gallic aristocrats still own most of Gaul, which is wholly unique in the Roman Empire, where pretty much the rest of the empire, it's the Italian aristocrats that own the landed assets and everything else in the empire. So when you get to like the 5th century, the Italian aristocrats, the noble class, the equestrians, they don't really view Gaul as really Roman. They view it as this thing that is borderline sovereign in its own right. And what happens from that is that when the Germans cross over the Rhine, they don't feel any need to get involved, because it's not their vineyards burning, it's not their mines getting looted, it's not their cities being sacked, it's the Gallic elite cities. From the Italian perspective, this is a rival castle in the empire suffering. You can only win by doing nothing. So the Italian noble families did nothing as Gaul burned. But what that caused is that these families that had been otherwise fairly loyal to Rome for like 300 years they started looking at the Italy as like, well, wait a second, why are we getting the short end of the stick? We've been paying our taxes, we've been doing all this stuff, we contribute to everything to their own empire, but why is no one defending us? And that caused them to eventually go for a usurper. And when they found a usurper a competitive emperor to protect them from the Goths, that's when Rome set in legions to put it down, not to get rid of the foreign invasion, but to put down the competitive emperor, the usurper. And after that, the Gallic families were like, hold on, we just were set on fire for like 3 years, and the second we try to defend ourselves, you come after us instead of the foreign horde. Well, this is not fair. And what that happened, that caused the Gallic aristocrats to start forming networks with each other to figure out how do they get out of Rome's shackles. And because because the Italian nobles didn't feel an obligation, like a noble oblige to support Gaul, they didn't stop this organization. As a matter of fact, they enabled it as a kind of like, well, it's not our problem. So Gaul went so far as to setting up its own government in I think Provence or something, Toulouse, where it was called the government of the 7 provinces, and they would make their own laws, recruit their own legions, and basically have like a non-emperor political figure to do things for them at the imperial level. When I say imperial government, it basically means federal government for Rome. And this is like just utter mismanagement by the Italian nobles, allowing this rival castle to become self-sufficient, to the point that when the Roman Empire started like falling apart and coming to pieces, Gaul never formally declared independence. They just said to some Franks, "Hey, you want to be a king? There's no emperor right now, so why don't you just come in and be a king?" There's that paper, Gallic Aristocracy and the Roman Imperial Court by Charles Plomin III, goes into detail about the consequences of not federalizing divergent forces in your empire. It's a playbook for the consequences of it. Now again, granted, in this instance, I think the Gallic aristocrats, they actually cared about their people. They actually invested in their people. So I'm glad they won. I'm kind of glad that they weren't federalized. But this is a great article. It's not that long, but it just outlines the process of what happens from inaction.
Is there a difference between federalization and nationalization?
No,
right?
Not really. In this context, not really.
So this is clearly what needs to happen. I'm really glad we had this conversation because this is obviously it. And it's got to be easier to do this with 501c3s where this is all run through.
Yeah.
Than it is for private companies, right? Because obviously 501c3s don't pay taxes, and they, have sorts of various federal ties. There's a federal designation, so this has to happen. They got to figure this out. They got. The problem is, could you get a law passed about 501c3s that they have to not fucking be anti-America and it's like super strict scrutiny or something? Or I guess you'd want whatever the opposite of scrutiny is. But yeah,
it feels like something you could easily slip in on an earmark for a bill. Like this is like really basic stuff of political political machinations. You want to bring something under control federally, you slip it in on an earmark. It can be like a one line that says must report patriotic duties, or must report foreign assets, or must report like one line on a bill of an earmark adding to regulating these organizations. It's not hard. They just don't know.
Yeah, they just don't do it. So let me ask another question. This deals with the answer of why nothing is happening from a sort of logistical networking standpoint. Why is there no right-wing orcs, though? Right? Why don't we have orcs at all? They have all the fucking orcs. We have no orcs. We have no ground troops. Maybe we used to have ground troops. I mean, the Klan, right? The Ku Klux, and I'm not saying we, by the way, before somebody puts that on me. I'm not saying that the Klan would have been my ground troops. I'm just saying the Klan was an example of right-wing orcs, which is bad.
Yeah, where's our IDF? Let's put it that way.
Well, or not even IDF. Where's our tranny killers? Again, I'm not saying this is good. I don't advocate for this. The whole point is that I don't want this to happen. But it used to be that the right did have, we had Oklahoma City bombs. God, I'm saying we. I don't mean we as in like this is something that I advocate. I'm just saying the right wing did have violent extremists that were part of them that were, in these networks of people, right? For a while. They were kind of related to bikers and kind of related to, it seemed like there was some vague network of people who would execute these like violent plans against feds. There was the guy that killed the Jewish guy, right? They killed the white supremacists, killed the Jewish radio guy. That used to be a thing, whereas now there's no response. There's no like, it's not like our gang members now go after their gang members. We have no gang members. We have no god. We have no orcs. Orcs. The reason I say orcs is because in every fantasy movie, there's not every, but many sci-fi and fantasy movies, there's this like army of sort of infantry, expendable infantry that they're always kind of like putty-ish, like the Power Rangers putty. Like they're kind of like, you can like blow their arms off easily. They're kind of like zombies. Like they're not 100% like solid. They're kind of like fake, but there's a bazillion of them, and they're somehow powered by the like nefariousness of the empire, of the overlord. They're somehow powered, and if you kill the overlord, they all get turned off at once. That's what these like insane far leftists that you see them now everywhere, more and more and more. You see them everywhere, who are, you got to think jerking off 50 times a day to sissy porn. They're on all kinds of weird drugs. They're like the orcs. They're like these putties of the other side. They're the shock troops. Why don't we have those?
I don't think we want. I don't think we should want them.
No, I'm not saying we should want them. I'm just wondering why don't we have
them? Well, I would argue that those forces that you're describing, they're an extension of a unit class, and the purpose of a unit class in a collapsing empire is to loot. The right wing doesn't loot, so it doesn't have orcs. The whole purpose of that, like that as a symptom, it's orcs are a symptom of a looting action, of like a tearing down or a deconstructing of something. If you're the one building, like Aragon didn't have an equivalent to the orcs, did he? He didn't have like
right. Yeah,
these things.
Because had men, right? They had men only.
Yeah,
that was
The builders don't get an orc class, right? They don't get the foot soldiers for looting because they're not looters. To return to that paper I was just talking about, Rome had this too. I think they were called the Bucale, and what they were these landless, despotic. They're kind of like land pirates. They were basically roving gangs of the victims of the Goths. The Goths would raid an area. All these farmers would have no land, no money. So they would form a gang and start looting the highways and demanding payment to get through highways. They were a symptom of the barbarian invasions, and Rome didn't. Rome, neither the Romans nor the Gothic aristocrats, they're the ones trying to build things. They didn't really have an equivalent to this. In many ways, the Bucale were a kind of symptom aligned partially with the Goths to some degree. Although, an ironic twist, one of the reasons why the Roman Empire settled barbarians within the empire, if you look at where they settled them, it's all areas that the Bucale were. So it's never been directly like stayed by the Romans. That was their policy, but you can tell from a map. Oh, you're settling the barbarians in the areas where there are gangs, so they fight each other instead of Rome. It's kind of obvious. So, in many ways, you could almost say like, oh, you want to deal with the left's orcs, dump immigrants in their neighborhoods. But that's not the right way. That's not the American way. That just further deteriorates the country. If you want to actually build something, you have to come at the root of what's funding these orcs, and they'll disappear. Like they are a symptom of darkness.
Right. If you cut off their master, they all die. That's the whole thing.
Yeah,
that's the definition of an orc, is that's their weakness. That's their Achilles heel, right? Is they die. They're overwhelming. There's a million of it. It happens in every movie. In the end of Endgame, Avengers, they have their orc army. Of course, you kill Thanos, boom, they're all gone. It's not like they're hanging around, right? It's like that's the whole key. It's like, oh, there's victory is impossible. Game of Thrones, same thing. Victory is impossible, but if you kill the Night King, all of the threats go away. Whereas humans aren't like that because humans are more decentralized, right? It's like the human army is like actually made of individuals. It's not made of this brainless thing. So yeah, it's true. The bandit analogy is interesting. The highwayman. It's like these are highwaymen, kind of like they're looters. That's funny.
Yeah, because like there will never be an Antifa state, an Antifa government. They're not capable of constructing. They're a looting mechanic in the eunuch phase of imperial decline.
God. So wait, tell us again. People we heard this in the beginning, but what is, again, just so we know, the eunuch phase? What exactly do you mean by that? Because I think I didn't ask you quite to clarify that exact. I think I know what you mean, but I just want to hear it again.
Well, any imperial power tends to develop this class of managerials who are they're not really interested in long-term thinking. Their primary responsibilities are to get the taxes to the government. But when imperial power starts declining, they start becoming more selfish because they sense that the imperial power, they're probably going to outlive it, so they need to have a preparation for how they're going to survive. And it becomes like a divergent lord, again, like the South almost with the families. In China, these were the eunuchs. They were just like professional eunuchs. The Empire used them. The Chinese Empire used them because
eunuchs. They were actual
eunuchs.
Yeah.
They were actual eunuchs, and they were made eunuchs because the idea was if you prevent this man from breeding, he can't form a competitive dynasty to the emperor. So there was
So that's where that comes from. Interesting.
Yeah.
So that's why they have eunuch. That's why this same process is visible across the world. Is that it basically comes from the desire for the ruling party to have people around him that aren't competitive.
Exactly. Like
people that makes so much sense. Holy shit, that makes so much fucking sense. Wow.
Yeah.
I never put two and two together on that. I never like thought about why that was. It's fascinating. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah. I mean, that's one of the big reasons why you get a eunuch class in most imperial powers, be it the Ottomans, the Chinese, the Romans, the Egyptians. These are powerful figures that have no ability to create a competitive dynasty. So they're kind of like they're mules. They're one-offs. Once they're gone, their wealth goes to the emperor, and their power's over. The problem is that if imperial power weakens, and these men are aware that they're more powerful than the emperor now, they get very selfish because they're just about living for them and theirs while they're here. They become like the ultimate looters. They are aware that at some point in time they're probably going to be an independent power. And they're going to have to think. They're forced to think long term, even though they can't create long term. That just makes a looting operation. Antifa is in many ways a eunuch class that has been militarized because they can sense the imperial power is collapsing, and so they're starting to loot things for their own power. Even though like nothing Antifa builds will ever last longer than a generation because they're literally eunuchs, they still want them and theirs for when everything crashes down.
It's Chaz Chop, right? It's Chaz Chop can't exist. It's chaos. It is a chaotic thing because you're right. It's a kleptocracy. Is this why they called the Soviet Union a kleptocracy? Is that because the klept means theft? Klept means theft, right?
Yeah. In many ways, in the late Soviet era, the kleptarchs they were these people that were aware that their entire existence is dependent on the existence of the Soviet Union, and the Soviet Union was collapsing, so they had to think about how are we going to transfer out of communism. So there was this looting operation in the late Soviet Empire because they were basically getting ready for building something when the Soviet Union's gone. The looting operation is building a financial fortress to weather out the collapse. It's
pure so that is the same, right? So that is the same thing. Yeah. It would be interesting to think about that era. It would be interesting to think of that era. This is what the room full of Adderall people needed to look into is what happened during kleptocracy? Was there some weird eunuch shit going on there? How did that? But that was different, right? Because that was sort of reverse communism because it was the communist state that was failing, right?
Yeah.
So
Well,
it was sort of reverse.
late communism wasn't really communist anymore. It was just a security state with its own economic interests. Like communism, kind of like I would argue Stalin killed communism in Russia, and it was just imperialism after that. But that's because I'm a libtard.
Okay. So wow. So all right. So you have these eunuchs who are pulling everything apart. I mean, what I noticed just on the street level, and again, I'm a street level observer. I don't, I try to go with my eyes and ears. What I can see in the past 2 years is, and this probably is a direct reflection of the 70s. So I am curious to study the 70s and understand how the days of rage ended more. But like when the hippies came out, you have to imagine normal people were going around, and then suddenly there was this aesthetic person that was out there that had this odd aesthetic that you suddenly noticed and you started seeing it everywhere, right? That's what's happening with this Antifa thing. I don't know if we really have names for these people yet, but there is now a class of person that their aesthetic is so heavy that it's not like a hipster. This isn't like the hipster era where it was like a guy with a mustache. This is like actually the army. This is the orc army. And they have a look to them. I was at a restaurant the other day and I looked to a table and it took me 2 seconds to say that's a group of Antifa people. And I knew it. I was like, they're all Antifa. I know what they are. And then, of course, I go up and I kind of like poke around, and sure enough, all of their shirts have like, it's like communism hasn't been tried. It's their pins on their backpacks are all like, Antifa dog whistle-y type of things. So it's like this is happening. They're there. They're here. This fucking orc army is fucking here. Like, they're not just gonna get put back in the tube. Something's gonna happen with this group. They're here to destroy America. They've been paid to do so. As you're saying, they are stealing everything they possibly can in their path. They're just fucking stealing everything and justifying it by saying, "Well, this is white supremacy, so I deserve this thing I'm stealing." Look what happened to BLM. BLM just stole all of the money, and now they have mansions somewhere, right? That's what happened with BLM, and now we're going to get another one. So when you can feel it like that on the street, I don't think I've ever, since I've been alive, have had anything like that. There's never been a time since I've been alive where there's just people, common everyday people at restaurants that you can tell they are actual revolutionaries who are here to actually destroy the United States. Somebody just had a tweet about this today. It was like, you can't quite wrap your head around the fact that these people, you go to coffee with them, and then, oh, by the way, they are actually trying to destroy America. And it's not, dude, like young communist-y people, look, they've always been like that. But I don't think since the 70s we've had this group. I think we've had it before. I think we did have this in the 70s. But I think none of us alive, besides people who actually remember the 70s, which is really only boomers, have really ever experienced this before. I don't know if you're seeing that. Do you see this where you are?
Actually, not so much in New York. I think New York is just generally declining. Like what I have noticed in New York is that pretty much every Muslim in the country is moving to New York to live under the future Muslim mayor. We've had a massive import of Muslims, and the Muslims they're not really interested in. I'll give them credit. I've never seen Muslims really interested in the looting mechanism. They're really more interested in replacing what's dying. I kind of feel like I'm in Constantinople right before it falls. There were already Muslims in Constantinople before the Ottomans took it, and they were just waiting to set up their own government. Many people don't know this, but for 40 years before Constantinople fell to the Turks, Constantinople was paying taxes to the Ottomans. They weren't an independent power anymore.
Wow.
The reason why, what is his name? Ahmet? I forget his name, but the reason why the Ottomans conquered Constantinople was because they stopped paying taxes. They were already a state of the Ottoman Empire.
Weird.
They tried to say no, we're independent, and so the Ottomans were like, you haven't been independent for 40 years, so we're just going to make you a formal territory. Nobody really knows this, but like almost nobody knows this, but the Constantinople was not an independent power when it was taken by the Ottomans. They were a protectorate of the Ottomans. The Ottomans had already taken over financially, and so they just came in and took it over because they tried to say no, we're not going to pay taxes anymore. Like, okay, here's the cannonballs, bye. New York City feels like that, where it's very clearly going down the London route, where they're about every Muslim in the country is moving to New York. They're going to elect a Muslim, and they're going to form a little mini emir. Now, I'm less concerned about that than I probably should be. To me, Muslims are at least they at least build civilizations. They're not like pure looting like Antifa. But like, I don't want that. I don't want that in America. But at the same time, I almost say, well, at least things won't be chaotic like in the rest of the country. It's like there were plenty of people. There were plenty of people like this.
Once we're living under the Muslims. The Muslims were nice to the Jews. The Muslims were very nice to the Jews when they were in control. We'll be fine. No, come on, these fucking Muslims. The old Muslims were cool. These new Muslims are not cool. They suck. They're communists. It's the same fucking thing.
They're libtards. They're communists.
No, it's like the old Muslims, like, well, fine. Who cares? I mean, I care, but I'm just saying, like, it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world to live under like that the older brand of Islam. It's this new fundamentalist shit. It's like, fuck that. Nobody wants that, man. But that's fascinating to hear that. So do you think Mamdani's going to win?
Thus far, it looks like he's going to win, and I'm kind of thinking he's going to be like Mayor Khan in London. It's not like the end of the world. These people at least run states, right? They don't run looting operations. They run states. You're just not the priority anymore. So like if you're a British person under Khan, you're not suffering the looting and rape and pillaging that you see in a lot of rural areas. But you're not the priority anymore. You're the secondary citizen. So you just mind your own business and you'll get by fine. But like, I'm fully aware I'm in a declining empire. I'm being taken over by a foreigner, and so long as I pay the jizra, I won't have to worry about much.
The jizra. You're paying the jizra, all right. They're gonna make you pay the jizra.
You know what that is, right? You know what that is?
Jizra.
It's the tax that Muslims give non-Muslims in places they conquer.
Oh.
It's kind of like it's a soft motivation to convert. So like when the Muslims took over North Africa and Constantinople, they had the jizra tax, where if you're not a Muslim, you have to pay a little extra. You have to pay like a 2% tax. It's like the most mildly annoying thing to just make you convert.
Muslims aren't getting my jizra. They're gonna have to pull my jizra. From my I
might be saying it wrong. I might be saying it wrong, but I don't care.
The Muslim jizra. Dude, I don't even dislike Muslims. I don't care. Muslim people are fine. It's more the fundamentalist Islam that just fucks everything up. That's really, I'm not like, on Israel, do I really give a shit? I don't. In my heart of hearts, I don't actually care. I care about America. That's what I fucking care about. Do I recognize that that's maybe naive? And look, as a fucking Jew, should I support Israel? Probably yes. And I do. I do in a fundamental sense. I don't hope they lose, but in terms of my...
You just hope they get a better government.
I don't even know. What's going to happen there? You seem to know everything. What's going to happen? I mean, in a good way. What's going to happen in Israel?
That's it's impossible to tell. I mean, I've been aware for like a few years now that Bibi is like everything BB does is to avoid jail
Mm,
because his left wing opposition has been trying to jail him for like 10 years
right.
now, and everything BB does is to avoid jail time. So he'll start wars to have emergency actions, so you get like power over the people and you can silence your enemies. But that doesn't last forever. So I feel like at some point in the next couple of years, Israel's going to make a turn for the hard
Yeah, I
left,
think you're right.
and you might see a bit of an awkwardness where you could totally see Israel feeling this like colonial guilt under the left wing, where they have to give all their money to Palestine now, and that very well could just end up with Israel
The-
being infiltrated and
It's
destroyed by
the end of Israel.
Palestinians.
That's what I see. I see
Yeah.
that. It's amazing you've said that, because that's exactly what I see happening. And I don't want this to happen, but I'm saying that what my prediction would be, my depressing prediction would be that the left gets in control. They put BB in jail. They completely lay down, right? And pretty much
Yeah.
laying down, it's just over. Like say that basically Palestine, they're not Palestine, but somehow the Arab world just takes it over in some way. I don't know how that would exactly
Yeah,
go.
yeah.
But
Well, Nima Parvini's famous saying, academic agent, he says the organized minority will always defeat the disorganized majority.
yeah,
And if I have mixed feelings about Israel. I view it as from an American perspective, I view it as a useful outpost, but it shouldn't have as much power over our politicians as it does. Like, I want Israel to be a normal country. I want it to just be a normal Western country that makes a good vacation spot and is generally like I'm a bit of a libtard. I wouldn't mind a liberal like a liberal Israel that is not self-destructive and hates itself, but it looks like the far left is going to take over soon, and they're going to do what they always do. They're going to say, "Oh, we're colonizers, we're evil people, we hate everything, bow over backwards, and take the Islamic thing."
yeah, I think that's
But,
basically what's going to
it's-
happen. I don't see the
Yeah.
Jews are too, and I know this from a lifetime of experience. Jews are not really that attackable from the right. They are very vulnerable from the left. They cannot deal with left wing. It's like left wing pressure.
Yeah.
It just destroys them. They can't. It's like they don't know how to.
Well, I
fucking
mean,
deal with it.
in every historic example where they were put out of power, it came from the left. It came from it came from and people will say, "Oh, what about the Reconquista?"
Well, besides Nazis,
Well,
right?
yeah. But even after the Nazis, who put them into Israel? It was all the DDR and left wing politicians that sent them out.
Israel's
to Israel.
a leftist country.
So the actual
Israel is a left wing country.
So Israel has always bowed to left wing pressure when the right wing isn't in power, and when the right wing is in power, it's very it's defensive against its own conquests. It doesn't want to admit it did anything wrong. Like I don't like I think the entire war was like you could have done it better. You could have done a strategic strike where the hostages were, just get them out and war's done in a week. But they chose to do this obviously like incriminating thing that the left is going to hold against them in Israel for like 20 years to come.
Not just the left, the whole world,
forever.
The entire fucking world is going to.
Well, What BB has done is erase the exception. Israel is no longer the exception to you can't accuse a Jew of being a colonizer. Right. BB has erased that. He's completely he's like Israel has lost its global exception.
Absolutely.
I mean, in many ways, yeah. It would have been nice if Israel just became a normal country, but now BB had to go like really crazy, and now they're not just going to be a normal country; they're going to be like the hated country. Yeah. And there's an argument to be said that BB might want to do this to like. There's a way. Sometimes people in power, what they do is they try to make the country feel like the victim, so that they go for the leader, like our hero, our protector. And BB might have been thinking that, but it really backfired badly for him. So yeah, I mean, like I don't see how BB is going to survive if the war ends, because the whole power mechanism that he has is built on special permissions put into the war declaration. Once the war is over, those special powers are restricted,
which would
and he gets
explain
kicked out.
why- yeah.
Yeah, the next vote of no confidence for Israel isn't allowed until December or January. I forget when. And it looks likely that if the war ends before December, he's going to be in jail by February.
Wow. It is funny also, and this will be the last thing. It's what's funny in both the case of Charlie Kirk and the case of Israel and October 7th. It's like October 7th was actually an attack on Israel. But yet, for some reason, that seems to be the date in which the entire world turned against Israel. You know? And it feels the same with Charlie Kirk. It feels like, and I noticed that the day after Charlie Kirk got killed, I got the craziest messages I've got from left-wing people in a really long time. You know, like stuff about my family. Oh, you scared, bro? You know, like really crazy shit.
Oh, that's weird.
And it's because like when you take a blow like that, it's weird. It's like people are so primal. It's like when people see another, despite all of our bullshit empathy, when people love serial killers, right? When people see another person get a fucking face shot like that, it emboldens them weirdly. You know, it's like it actually makes them stronger, even though we're supposedly murder's wrong and we go against the murderer and all this shit. In both instances, it was weird because they were sort of offensive actions that should have had the world up in arms about it, but actually the world kind of went with the aggressor in both of those cases. It's very strange.
I think that's important because the gradual global turning away from Israel kind of came, like there were some early adopters of that, but I think it came like a year later when it looked like Israel couldn't conquer it, and then obviously it started getting pretty brutal with how they were treated with like. I think the risk that Trump runs is that if he takes the half-ass approach that Bibi took with like dealing with the situation, you're going to see the left, like a year after Charlie Kirk, they're going to be like, well, fuck this guy's stupid. We can just take whatever we want and no one's going to stop us. That's one of the most important things. Like if Bibi had simply like destroyed Hamas and taken the hostages back with like minimum casualties, like just a fact, like the problem, Hamas is just a symptom of these like families that run it from Iran. If he just would have taken out those families, gotten the hostages back, and ended the war in 2 weeks, like direct, precise action, the world would have been okay. Like he would have been considered a hero. In the same way, if Trump doesn't do anything, half-asses it, gets into a quagmire like Bibi did, it's just going to be a signal that he's weak, and the left is going to start getting more and more violent and looting, and they're going to take the moral win. Well, look, we can do anything. No one can stop us, so let's just keep going.
It's so true. Dude, we just I had a tarot guy on my pod, and I also have been having this thought myself. We're in the era of the Lord of Swiftness. We need speed. Like our side needs to do speed. That's what we can do. We can win on speed. We can't win on power. So it's like you're exactly right. It's like the fact that Bibi wasn't able to do it quick enough. The world just had too much time to get their shit in order and to, execute this thing they'd been planning anyway, which was Israel's bad, right? They'd been planning that anyway, and then it was just too long. This went on for too long. And had he been much more decisive and took control in a clear way quickly, it would have been very different. But instead, it's this vague thing, right? And it's like, are they winning? Did they win? What's going on? Does anybody know? It's not clear. So it's like, you're right. That gave the world, or it gave these NGOs enough time to be like, okay, let's go against Israel because we've been waiting to do this anyway.
Yeah. And there is a left wing. There's a left wing motivation in Israel to obviously the left wing wants to make it like a the Israel left wing doesn't want like religion. It doesn't want culture. It just wants to become an economic zone in many ways. Uh, and I can see it as like, well, you've ruined our tourism, you've ruined our trade, you've ruined our tech capital for this stupid war. So we're just gonna like destroy the entire right wing of Israel now, like just destroy them. Again, it would have been nice if Bibi just tactically took down the specifics, gotten the, like minimum civilian casualties, maximum results, done overnight. They can do it. They've done it before. I think Bibi was slow because he wanted those powers to control the country more. Because again, he's very worried about going to jail, so he wants to go after his enemies domestically as much as foreign. And he ended up doing neither. And yeah. It's the same thing with Trump. I'm definitely more critical of Israel, but like I see the logic of at least with Bibi, I see the logic of the delay because you keep power longer, you can domestically control things longer. But if he didn't balance it right, and now he's losing everything. In the same way, if Trump doesn't capitalize on this and make this like a 2-week op that just ends these unhinged families in like this has to be done quickly and just like the Union did to the Southern slave owners, just come in decisively, tactically, strategically. I mean, obviously, initially during the Civil War, they were brutal. They tyrannized the South. They burned everything down. But the Union after the war was more intelligent, a lot more tactical, minimum casualties, go after the families, end of the Southern aristocracy, and federalize everything. That was done very quickly in the 1870s. It took them like a fucking decade to get their senses straight. It was like a decade of terrorism and slow operations and confusion. But once they knew what they had to do, it was over by like in a few years in the South. Wow. It's these. I don't know why it's indecisive. I don't know why people they must know that indecision and slowness give signal to your enemies to go after you harder. And yet this is like the second time Trump is doing this way. Like he had this problem in the end of his presidency where he didn't manage the situation and take control. And so he was just like him and his were just prosecuted for 4 years. He's extremely lucky he got in, and now he's just doing the same thing again. He's just going to end up in jail in 2028 if he keeps doing this.
Yeah, right. And amazing. All right, dude, we gotta get out of here. You are a man with answers. I will say you are a man that has answers, and I think that it's great. I haven't had so many answers per minute in a while. So, dude, thanks so much for coming on again. I'm really glad that you suggested this. And anything you want to shill?
Just my Substack. I'm probably going to close Twitter again for a while. Twitter is just chaos, and I usually I don't like Twitter anymore. But my Substack is just aelf.substack.com. It's just where I write these things with. My Twitter account is much
you got to tell people how to spell this because it's very hard to find.
Yeah, aelth.substack.com. It's where I write my thoughts down a lot more coherently there, and my Twitter account I do a lot of trolling. I don't mean like 90% of the things I say on Twitter. It's much more trolling, and I gotta stop. It's not good for your soul. I'd rather just write coherent thoughts down in an orderly, scholarly way.
Yes, you are so correct. It is very, very bad. I need to get off of it, and I will soon. But all right, dude. Thank you so much. This is awesome, and I will talk to you soon.
Yep, have a good one.
All right, bye.